empowering people, giving them freedom, giving them choices, entrusting the market, the free market, rather than centralized government control. So the 5 free to be areas are pretty simple. First, you should be free to get a job in the career path of your dreams. And this means that you work hard to get your degree, you graduate, you're really passionate about the field of study that you were in, and you want to get a job there, but you can't because there are no jobs. So you end up working in retail. And there's nothing wrong with retail. But for a lot of people, that's not what they wanted. That's not why they worked so hard to get that degree in college. Why? Why are the job prospects not the same that prior generations had? Because Washington politicians, Sacramento politicians, City Hall politicians have decided they're going to regulate and they're going to tax. They're going to penalize. And they've created an environment where people don't want to invest. They don't want to start companies. And if they do, it's harder and harder for them to make ends meet, to hire people, to grow, to expand. And so what I want to do is take a look at how do we change our government interaction with working families and businesses so that we reward entrepreneurship, that we create conditions where people want to actually invest. If you work hard and you've got a great idea, the American dream should be yours. Simple as that. But we have a tax code that takes care of the big guys and penalizes small businesses and working families. Take a look at our tax code. More and more, the big guys, big business, are getting special favors because they have the money to go hire lobbyists, to sit in a room with the Democrats and the Republicans and get special consideration. The Hollywood movie producers tend to only support Democrats. They're very liberal. When you watch the Oscars, you hear speeches and lectures about all sorts of things that are bad about our country. But one of the biggest tax breaks is for Hollywood movie producers. $480 million a year. They're the 1%, and they're getting a sweetheart deal. And then you start taking a look at the bank bailout a few years ago. The Democrats and Republicans got together and said, let's go bail out the big banks. Wall Street was bailed out. Do you see bailouts for the small business owner? No, and in fact, what happened was small businesses could not get credit in this huge recession that we just had. And even today, it's harder and harder to get credit. Someone trying to refinance their mortgage has to jump through far more hoops. And they're just trying to take advantage of lower interest rates. And so the bailouts, the special consideration, the tax breaks, they're there for big business. It hasn't been there for the working family, it hasn't been there for the small business entrepreneur. What I want to do is require that government treat everyone the same. Whether you're a big business with billions of dollars or a small startup, same regulations, same fair share tax structure. Give everyone the same opportunity. Stop penalizing that small business entrepreneur who's just trying to make it, being part of the American dream. That's the first element of the Free to Be plan. Free to be in the job of your dreams. And that means that we've got to jumpstart this economy. We've got to start getting out of the way of entrepreneurs and small businesses and working families. Second, free to be. You should be free to be who you are with equal rights and equal protection under the law. We ought not to have government and Washington politicians at the very least telling you how to live your life in the privacy of your bed. They shouldn't be spying on you on your phone or your email. They have no business. If they want to get information on you, it's called due process. They have to show probable cause. They got to go before a judge and they got to get a search warrant. That's what our Constitution guarantees you. But no, there are policies right now in Washington that have taken those protections away. Talk about some of the other social issues, whether it's your right to the Second Amendment or your right to control your health care and health choices and your body. Or how about the person you love? Why should a government politician get to limit or restrict who you get to love? It's absurd that we're having debates on those issues while we have a national debt, while the economy is not performing, while programs are broken. We're getting distracted and divided on the social issues. And so I'm challenging the Republican Party. Butt out. Let the individual make the decision. I trust individuals far more than I trust a politician of either political party. Third, you should be free to afford your tuition. And that's where we are laying out reforms on student loans. What we've seen is more and more government intrusion and regulation in the student loan market. And you have a number of opportunities to allow people to refinance student loans that are not available because the banks say legal or accounting challenges, barriers in the law. We can't allow someone some flexibility when they're on hard times to lengthen their payments or to get a different interest rate. Fine, if accounting rules and legal challenges are posing a problem, providing people flexibility so they don't default on loans, let's change the law. Let's change the rule. Let's also open it up to more competition. Let's allow community banks. Let's allow credit unions to offer different types of loans. I also think that we should explore, for a small business entrepreneur, maybe what we do is we change the repayment structure so for 5 years or so, while they're getting their company off the ground, we cap their repayment at a percentage of their income. But we need to be looking at how we can make the student loan program more flexible so that people actually have different options for financing college. We also need to cut the cost of college. The UC and the CSU system have the same pension crisis that we had in the city of San Diego. You are paying higher tuition rates because of the government unions that have come in and said, we're going to dictate to you salaries, benefits, and that they're going to be put at a level much higher than the local labor market. You're paying for that in higher tuition, higher cost of living on campus. We need to reform that. Fourth, free to be. You should be free to choose the health insurance that works for you, healthcare solution that would work best for your circumstance. That means that you want to stay on your parents' plan, I think that's great. Stay on your parents' plan. If that means that you want to get into a health savings account, where you get to control what healthcare you're going to actually purchase and make those decisions with your doctor, then let's expand health savings accounts. Those are the most advantageous vehicles for healthcare for the millennial generation, people who are younger, healthy. The healthcare system was broken before Obamacare, but Obamacare makes it far, far worse. And so you can't solve something by saying you're against something. You can be against something, but tell me what you'd replace it with. What would be the reform package? And so in the Free to Be plan, we talk about opening up health insurance markets to more competition. Once again, those big businesses, and the Republicans and Democrats let them both do it. Health insurance companies went and got a special exemption from competition, interstate competition. They said we should only allow people to buy health insurance within the state boundaries, not across state lines. Now, you can buy life insurance from another state. You can't buy health insurance from a company in another state. It's absolutely crazy. When I ran my companies, we were bi-coastal, Washington, D.C. and San Diego. We had to have two different sorts of health plans for our employees. So I think we should open up for competition. Let's make things more transparent. When you walk in to a doctor's office and you get a test, same individual, same test. Medicare is charged one rate versus a health insurance company charged another rate, versus if you don't have health insurance, you get hosed. You get charged a much, much higher rate. How many of you guys have seen a health bill where it comes back and the insurance company says, here's what the doctor charged, and this is what we're actually going to allow? So what I'm saying is we ought to stand up for transparency in the marketplace. You ought to be able to see the prices on the shelves. So what we would suggest is that under Free to Be, you should have full transparency on what is the lowest price charged by that provider to any client in the past 24 months. And then let's go one step further. How many of you guys bought an airline ticket online or a hotel room online? Gosh, the market seems to have figured out how to take and create competition using technology. I'd like to be able to take that same healthcare service and allow you to go online and figure out in the 10-mile radius of San Diego, the same treatment, the same procedure, what would other doctors, what would other providers charge you? Can you imagine what would happen to pricing if you had transparency and competition within markets? That's not a government idea. It's a marketplace idea. And what we need to do is start thinking in terms of how do you get accessible, affordable health care, and let's not think about the government regulation or the mandate or the tax. Let's think about how have we solved these problems in other walks of life. Buying a hotel room or buying an airline ticket is far more cost effective than trying to figure out how to get quality health care because of government involvement. We need to free that up. We need to have more competition and transparency. Your generation is going to get hosed by Obamacare. Under Obamacare, your premiums will go up the fastest, and you will be paying for more health care than you're actually using. Let me explain. They've decided to charge you more for your health care, even though the cost of providing health care to the millennials, those born after 1980, is far lower than what you're being charged, so they can take the surplus, the overcharge, and give that to others, particularly those who are older than 40. So you're going to charge people at a time of their life when they can least afford it, because either they're not working or they're underemployed, and they got student loans that they're trying to pay off. Government's decided that your generation, will pay for other generations. It's not fair. It's not sustainable. A lot of you will also get notices, probably already have, about your health insurance being canceled. The president said, if you like your health insurance,
You can keep it.
you can keep it. You can keep it.
That's what we say to Obamacare.
And that,
You can keep it.
that of course was not true. And it's not right. So we have a lot of reform that we have to implement in healthcare to provide accessibility and affordability. And you can't fix a system unless you have a better idea. You can't just say, this is what I don't like. Offer solutions. And I don't think Republicans have been proactive and positive and forthcoming on solutions when they oppose something. And I want to change that. I want to challenge my own party. When you oppose something, that's fine. Vote no. But in the very next breath, lay out a credible solution that you'd like to see if you can get bipartisan support. Fifth and final, free to be. So you should free to be in the job of your dreams, economic opportunity. You should be free to be who you are, equal rights with equal protection under the law. You should be free to afford your tuition. You should be free to get the health care that works for you. Final, free to be free to live your life without paying off the debts of others. Politicians in Washington have run up trillions in national debt, and they've created unsustainable promises that you're going to be expected to pay for. And so because of all that debt, because you're paying off their debt when you're older, you will pay higher taxes, have a higher cost of living, and you will receive less benefit, less services over the course of your life if you allow them to continue with this debt. We are robbing from future generations. It's what we see here in San Diego. You go back and you take a look at what we were paying locally in taxes in 1980 and services that we were receiving. And you'll find time and time again that on a dollar per outcome basis, we were getting more for our money in 1980, in 1990, than we're getting today from our local government. And the same is true at the state government, and the same is true at the national level. And so we have to do two things. We have to demand that the spending addiction be addressed, that we have to control spending and fix the debt. And number two, we have to rethink the programs, because we care about these programs. We need these programs. When you see service members come back to this country after delaying their education and delaying their job search, putting their lives on the line in many cases, and they have to wait 600 days to get their veterans benefits approved, that's unacceptable. And so we have to demand that not only do we fix the financial problems, but we fix the accountability problems in Washington. Actually, let's provide the services that we pay for. Those are the 5 commitments. And I don't think there's a Democrat or a Republican view on that, because when we present to Democrats, independents, and Republicans, they hear these ideas, they like them. And you take a look at some of the reforms that would address these issues, 50, 60, 70% of the American people support the reforms. But we can't get Congress to actually vote and pass those reforms. We can't get them to work together to get those things done. And that's where I think we need to have public pressure. We did it here in San Diego when I authored the plan to save the city from bankruptcy. And the Democrats at first didn't like it. Frankly, the Republicans didn't like it. I had to take on the Republican Party first to get them to buy into reform. But we were able to use public pressure to ultimately get through the city council and get onto a public vote our reform plan. And it made San Diego a model in how to deal with unsustainable pensions and to balance a budget in a way that reflects our priorities. We can do the same in Washington. I'm absolutely convinced. And it will require that groups like yours decide that you've had enough, that you're not going to let your future be mortgaged, and you're going to do something about it now. So I'm hoping that you'll walk out tonight wanting to be more engaged, and hopefully you'll see my candidacy, if not these ideas, as a way to be engaged in making a difference. With that, I'll open it up to questions, comments, suggestions. I get a lot of my ideas, again, just like the Free to Be plan came from sitting down with folks that are in college or recently graduated from college. I'm going to probably pick up a couple ideas tonight that I'm going to end up using and hopefully getting into law or getting implemented back in Washington. Yes, sir.
How did you create public pressure in San Diego?
How do we? How
did
did we? First and foremost, we built the case by educating the public on what's actually happening with their money. The politicians lied. My opponent, Scott Peters, lied. He created the pension crisis. He voted for budget after budget after budget that cut services and then raised taxes. That whole big business mindset, he gave a huge subsidy to big businesses on water bills while sticking it to the little guy, the resident, the working family. And so we saw evidence of them lying. They issued false and misleading financial statements. It got so bad that the city lost its credit rating. Scott Peters voted for false and misleading securities disclosures. You know what that's called? Fraud. The SEC came in and investigated the city and forced the city to sign a consent decree. So the first thing is that we've got to get open government, and we've got to shine a light and bring the case right out in front of the American people. I had to take on Dick Murphy, a Republican mayor, because he was covering this up with Scott Peters' help. And so a lot of it was spending the first few years being the skunk at the garden party. Having people say, oh, you're here to talk about the pension system again. And having people say, don't worry, it's not a crisis, the markets will recover. Don't listen to them. They're saying the sky is falling, but it's not. It's all good. While they were cutting our services and raising our taxes and letting our roads go to pot. And so part of it is building the case, and it wasn't overnight. I started addressing the fiscal crisis in San Diego in 2003. By 2006, we had our first wins for reform. By 2008, I got so fed up that we weren't moving quick enough that I decided to run for city council. First 2 years, very little was getting done. We got some victories, but it was very hard. Then we got Lori Zapp elected to city council, and our composition went from a 2-6 minority to a 3-5 minority. Still in the minority, but getting that one extra vote and building that public pressure finally caused it to get reformed. The real turning point, though, was when the Republican mayor, the Democrat council, the Republican lobbyists, the Democrat unions locked arms and said, now's our chance, let's raise taxes. Remember Prop D, 2010, the sales tax? Remember the ads? If you don't raise your taxes, what would happen? Your house is going to burn down and your loved one's going to get knifed. They're going to cut all the police officers and firefighters if you don't pay up.
Shut down the library.
They'll shut down the libraries, they'll do all the awful things. And we said, no, we're going to take on the establishment. We're going to say, no more money for you. And we were outspent in that campaign. But we ultimately won. Every council district, every political party, every socioeconomic group, including Latinos, Asians, African Americans, women, youth, all said no more money for you guys. And the very week that we defeated that sales tax, I rolled out a 360-page budget plan that balanced the budget without tax increases, restored services like after-school programs, and started putting more money back into our road system so we could turn the corner on the infrastructure crisis in San Diego. And we were able to get a lot of those budget ideas on a bipartisan vote through the council because we had boxed them in.